All right, let's tackle a really fascinating question from history. So, picture this. It's the mid-19th century, and the map of Europe is, well, a bit of a mess. It's this patchwork of little kingdoms and duchies, and you've got these big ideas from the French Revolution still swirling around. Liberty, nationhood, all that stuff. But turning those ideals into an actual unified country, whoa, that's a whole different ballgame. And that's where our story really kicks off. Because two brand new nations are about to burst onto the scene, Germany and Italy. What's so wild is that they both started from the same place, a jumble of separate states, all fired up by nationalism. But the paths they took to get there couldn't have been more different. Okay, let's break this down. On one side, you've got Germany's unification. This was basically a top-down master plan executed with brutal efficiency by Prussia in just 7 years. Think industry, think military might. On the other side, you've got Italy, and its story is this sprawling 50-year saga, full of revolution, passionate ideals, romance, and a whole lot of chaos and political maneuvering. Every big project needs a blueprint, right? Well, when you're building a nation, that blueprint is your core philosophy. So let's look at the very different plans that Germany and Italy were working from. So in the German states, Prussia ran on a philosophy called Realpolitik. This was a completely pragmatic, almost cold-blooded approach. You basically throw all the romantic ideals about liberty and popular will right out the window. Realpolitik is all about power. It asks one simple question: what is in the best interest of the state, and what is the most direct, effective way to get it? Italy, on the other hand, had a totally different vibe. Its journey was fueled by the risorgimento, which means the resurgence. And this was not some cold political strategy. No, this was a full-blown cultural and intellectual movement. It was about awakening a shared Italian identity through art and literature after centuries of foreign rule. It was all passion and romance, a call for a national rebirth. So you've got the blueprints, but ideas alone don't build a country, do they? You need an engine to actually drive the whole thing forward. Let's talk about the economic powerhouses that fueled these two unifications. Prussia's engine was an absolute game changer, called the Zollverein. Think of it like a giant free trade zone. Decades before they were politically united, Prussia got most of the German states to tear down their internal trade barriers. It was a genius move. It made Prussia the economic heart of Germany, and here's the really sly part: it deliberately kept its main rival, Austria, on the outside looking in. And if you want one stat that perfectly illustrates Prussia's industrial might, here it is. By the 1860s, its railway network was 3 times larger than Austria's. 3 times. And that's not just about moving goods. That meant Prussia could move troops and supplies with terrifying speed and efficiency. Economic power was literally laying the tracks for military victory. Italy, though, it was facing a much tougher road. Its industrial base was weak. It had this massive, massive economic divide between the more modern north and the super poor rural south. It was such a big problem, it even had a name: the Southern Question. We're talking widespread poverty, almost 80% illiteracy. So for Italy, unification wasn't just about politics. It was about trying to stitch together two completely different societies. So you've got the plans, you've got the engines. Now you need the architects, the masterminds who actually brought these visions to life. Let's meet the key players. For Germany, the story really comes down to one man, Otto von Bismarck. He becomes minister-president of Prussia in 1862, and he is the living, breathing embodiment of Realpolitik. You gotta understand, Bismarck wasn't some dreamy idealist. He was a hard-nosed Prussian loyalist who saw a united Germany as the ultimate vehicle for Prussian power. And for him, war wasn't a last resort. It was just another tool in the toolbox. And nothing, nothing, sums up his approach better than this famous quote. He'd seen the liberal revolutions of 1848 fail because they had lots of speeches, but no power. Bismarck was basically saying, nope, not making that mistake. He knew this new Germany wouldn't be born in a debate hall. It was going to be forged on the battlefield. Italy's leadership, true to form, was much more complicated. It wasn't one guy. It was more like a team of rivals. You had Cavour, the pragmatic, chess-playing prime minister. Then there was Garibaldi, the charismatic, romantic revolutionary leading his volunteer army. And then you had King Victor Emmanuel II, who became the symbol they could all, hopefully, rally behind. Thing is, their goals didn't always line up, which made the whole process incredibly messy and unpredictable. Okay, the plans are laid, the players are on the board. So how do they put it all into action? Well, whether it was through cold calculation or revolutionary passion, both paths would ultimately be decided by war. Bismarck executed a strategy that was just ruthless and brilliant. It was like a three-act play of short, decisive wars. Each one was perfectly calculated to achieve a specific goal: knock out an enemy, grab some territory, and then, for the grand finale, provoke a war with France to scare the last few German states into unifying. It was methodical, efficient, and devastatingly effective. Italy's path, meanwhile, was way longer and a whole lot messier. It wasn't a neat timeline. It was a series of wars that dragged on for over 20 years. They had to rely on shifting alliances, they had big wins and big defeats, and it was all complicated by internal drama, like Garibaldi's populist campaign clashing with Cavour's official strategy. It was anything but a straight line. So by 1871, the dust is settled. The map of Europe is redrawn, and these two powerful new nations have emerged, each one bearing the deep imprint of how it was created. And the results were just as different as the journeys. The German Empire is born in triumph. It's an industrial and military giant. But it's also an authoritarian state where the Kaiser and his Chancellor hold all the real power. The Kingdom of Italy is finally one country with a constitution. But it's born weak, facing massive debt, social unrest, and that painful, lingering divide between North and South. And this brings us to the big takeaway, right? How did these totally different origin stories set the stage for the future? Because the way a nation is born profoundly shapes its destiny. Germany's foundation in military victory created a state with immense strength, but also with aggressive tendencies. Italy's troubled, fractured birth left it with deep internal divisions that would challenge its stability for generations to come. These birth pangs of the 19th century weren't just history, they were echoes that would set the stage for the massive conflicts of the 20th century.